On September 9th, a State Department spokesperson said that the United States has revoked more than 1,000 visas of Chinese nationals over military links. The department spokesperson told the Epoch Times in a statement, "We continue to welcome legitimate students and scholars from China who do not further the Chinese Communist Party's goals of military dominance." The spokesperson added, "As of September 8, 2020, the department has revoked more than 1,000 visas of PRC nationals who were found to be subject to Presidential Proclamation 10043 and therefore ineligible for a visa. We do not discuss individual cases that are subject to these restrictions. Visa records are confidential under U.S. law." Starting from June 1st, the State Department began implementing a proclamation issued in late May by President Donald Trump. The proclamation was limited to Beijing's ability to leverage Chinese graduate students and researchers to steal U.S. technologies, intellectual property, and information to develop advanced military capabilities. On May 29th, Trump said ahead of the proclamation,
"For years, the government of China has conducted illicit espionage to steal our industrial secrets, of which there are many. Today, I will issue a proclamation to better secure our nation's vital university research and to suspend the entry of certain foreign nationals from China who we have identified as potential security risks."
In particular, the proclamation directs the State Department to consider revoking visas for Chinese nationals pursuant to an F or J visa to study or conduct research in the United States. Trump stated in the proclamation that the entry of such nationals would be detrimental to the interest of the United States. The president also said that Beijing is engaged in a wide-ranging and heavily resourced campaign to acquire sensitive United States technologies and intellectual property, which presents a threat to the U.S. economy and national security. President Trump wrote, "The PRC authorities use some Chinese students, mostly postgraduate students and postdoctorate researchers, to operate as non-traditional collectors of intellectual property. Thus, students or researchers from the PRC studying or researching beyond the undergraduate level who are or have been associated with the PLA are at high risk of being exploited or co-opted by the PRC authorities and provide particular cause for concern." On September 9th, Department of Homeland Security Acting Secretary Chad Wolf said in a statement, "China has leveraged every aspect of its country, including its economy, its military, and its diplomatic power, demonstrating a rejection of Western liberal democracy and continually renewing its commitment to remake the world order in its own authoritarian image." Among other actions noted to protect U.S. national security, Wolf said that the United States is blocking visas for certain Chinese graduate students and researchers with ties to China's military fusion strategy to prevent them from stealing and otherwise appropriating sensitive research. The State Department spokesperson noted that those whose visas have been revoked due to the proclamation represent a small subset of the total number of Chinese students and researchers coming into the United States. There are approximately 370,000 Chinese students studying in the United States, according to statistics compiled by the nonprofit Institute of International Education and the U.S. State Department. U.S. State Secretary Mike Pompeo previewed last month that Trump was evaluating measures over the next few weeks to prevent intellectual property theft by Chinese nationals and students. Pompeo said that at the same time as recognizing not every Chinese student in America is spying for the CCP, the Trump administration is taking this threat from the Chinese Communist Party seriously. He added that the administration is acutely aware of the pressure that Chinese students are subject to, being under CCP surveillance while on American soil. In August, the State Department wrote a letter encouraging U.S. colleges to review their relationships with Chinese-backed Confucius institutes and to guard against the Chinese regime's theft of U.S. research. In the letter to the Board of Directors of U.S. universities and colleges, Keith Krach, Undersecretary for Economic Growth, Energy, and the Environment, wrote that the Chinese regime seeks to exploit America's openness by implementing a well-financed whole-of-government campaign to recruit foreign experts through its more than 200 talent recruitment plans, including to speed its own efforts at military-civil fusion. He wrote, As of 2017, China reportedly has recruited 7,000 researchers who focus on or have access to cutting-edge research and technology. For the CCP, Chinese Communist Party, international scientific collaboration is not about advancing science. It is about advancing the PRC national security interests. The letter came just days after the department designated the Confucius Institute U.S. Center a Chinese diplomatic mission, a move that restricts its operations in the United States. The Department of Justice has launched a number of prosecutions over the past year, targeting Chinese and U.S. researchers who allegedly hid their ties to China as part of the China Initiative, a large-scale counter-CCP campaign launched in November 2018 by then Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Roughly 80% of all economic espionage prosecutions brought by the DOJ allege criminal conduct intended to benefit the CCP. China is involved in some way in about 60% of all trade secret theft cases, according to the DOJ. FBI Director Christopher Wray said the Bureau opens a new counterintelligence investigation involving China every 10 hours. The Bureau has more than 2,000 active China-related investigations as part of the China Initiative.
The latest report released by Australian Strategic Policy Institute exposed how the CCP has used coercive diplomacy in the past decade to force and bully other governments or corporations to comply with it. The report called on every nation to come together to resist the CCP. However, experts believe that decoupling from the CCP is the solution to the problem. On September 1st, Australian Strategic Policy Institute published a report called the Chinese Communist Party's Coercive Diplomacy, in which the CCP's coercive diplomacy used to suppress countries for the past decade is detailed. The report has been tracking the CCP's use of coercive diplomacy from 2010 to 2019. It recorded 152 cases of coercive diplomacy, with 100 cases targeted at foreign governments and 52 cases targeted at certain companies. Taiwan is particularly affected.
It was China that made Taiwan an isolated country. Australia is the worst victim for demanding an independent investigation on Wuhan pneumonia. The CCP immediately raised the tariff by 80% on wheat imports. It doesn't allow Australian products and beef to come in and then buys minerals from Africa. The CCP is great at doing things like these.
The report mentioned that the CCP's coercive tactics include economic and non-economic measures. Economic measures can take place in trade sanctions, investment restrictions, tourism bans, and popular boycotts. Non-economic measures can include arbitrary detention, restrictions on official travel, and state-issued threats. Christopher Wray, the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, already revealed in July that if U.S. officials wanted to visit Taiwan, the CCP would apply corporate or media pressure or public warnings to get them to cancel their visits to Taiwan. The report also mentioned many examples where the CCP suppresses and retaliates against foreign companies by encouraging Chinese citizens to engage in popular boycotts, by blocking websites, and by imposing direct legal punishment. These actions are implemented to pressure companies into issuing public apologies. The report wrote, of the cases recorded in this report, 82.7% of the companies issued apologies or followed the instructions of the CCP. Almost no companies had their own governments step up to help them respond.
The CCP has always put its own interests first when dealing with foreign enterprises. It induces all these countries to give up their own principles with its large market and profits in order to protect the rule of the CCP.
Many large enterprises like NBA, Gap, Marriott International, Daimler AG, and Hollywood have once kowtowed and apologized to the CCP because of business interests. However, according to a Radio Free Asia report, Patricia Adams, the CEO of Probe International, believes it is not helpful to be soft on the CCP. She said that two Canadians, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor, are still being detained in China, and it is a pity that the Liberal Party of Canada is too stubborn to take action. The report recommended 5 solutions to respond to the CCP's coercive diplomacy. These 5 solutions include increase global situational awareness about the widespread use of coercive diplomacy and the most effective strategies to counter it, respond via coordinated and joint pushback through multilateral forums and by building many-lateral coalitions of states affected by the same coercive methods. Five Eyes countries should consider adopting a collective economic security measure analogous to Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty establishing NATO. Factor in the heightened risk of doing business and building economic relations with China, particularly with regard to trade flows, supply chains, and market share, and develop economic, foreign, and trade protocols in collaboration with the business community on how best to respond to coercive methods applied to business. Nevertheless, Gao Weibang indicated that the most effective way is to decouple from the CCP so as to hit the CCP where it hurts.
The decoupling initiated by the US is basically decoupling economically from China. This can solve everything once and for all. After decoupling, the CCP cannot affect the US.
In mid-June, US President Trump publicly indicated that the US can totally decouple from the CCP based on a series of premises. On August 23rd, President Trump indicated in an interview with Fox News that the U.S. is not obligated to do business with China. If the CCP cannot treat the U.S. right, then he will decouple the country from China. This quickly softened Beijing's war wolf diplomacy and made Beijing demand cooperation from the U.S. During the September 7th press conference, President Trump once again talked about decoupling from China economically.
So we lose billions of dollars, and if we didn't do business with them, we would lose billions of dollars. It's called decoupling.
Ching Peng indicated that the evil nature of the CCP will never change. If governments and foreign companies continue to let the CCP get away with this, they will only be bullied continuously, especially at this time. If the world fails to hold the CCP accountable for the plague, then the CCP would become more evil after this. So he believes that every single country in the world should put efforts into upholding the morals and values of the world in the process of restructuring the global industrial chain.
President Trump held a rally in Winston-Salem, North Carolina on September 8th, stating his policy agenda for the next term, including ending dependence on China, promoting the return of enterprises, and strengthening law enforcement. He also reiterated that this election is crucial. President Trump said that after being re-elected, the United States will maintain energy independence.
While I'm president, America will remain the #1 producer of oil and natural gas on Earth, and we will remain energy independent.
Trump also promised to end U.S. manufacturing's dependence on China.
I have to say that over the next 4 years, we will make America into the manufacturing superpower of the world, and we will end our reliance on China once and for all.
In addition, Trump promised that medical supplies will be manufactured in the United States and more companies will move back to the United States. Fair trade deals will be enacted to create American jobs and grow American wages. He is also going to hire more police, increase penalties for assaults on law enforcement, surge federal prosecutors into high-crime communities, and ban all sanctuary cities. Trump once again reminded voters that the November 3rd vote is of great significance.
November 3rd, Americans will decide whether we will quickly return to record prosperity or whether we allow the same left-wing extremists that have no idea what they're doing.
Trump also accused Biden of allowing the CCP to plunder a large number of American jobs during his 47 years in office and pointed out that if Biden is elected, the United States will face a series of disasters.
Biden wants to impose a $4 trillion tax hike, a ban on American energy, eliminate America's borders, confiscate your guns. He wants to get rid of your Second Amendment.
During the rally, Trump once again expressed his confidence in winning the election.
On September 10th, the United States top diplomat urged Southeast Asian countries to stand up to maritime bullying by China and to reassess business deals with its state firms, adding to heated exchanges between two powers jostling for influence. Speaking remotely to foreign ministers of the 10-member Association of Southeast Asian Nations, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the region should be confident in the United States and know it can bank on its support. Pompeo said, "Today, I say keep going. Don't just speak up, but act. Reconsider business dealings with the very state-owned enterprises that bully ASEAN coastal states in the South China Sea. Don't let the Chinese Communist Party walk over us and our people." ASEAN has said it does not want to take sides amid friction over a recent spike in military activities by both powers in the South China Sea and ahead of a November election in which U.S. President Donald Trump will tout his tough stand against China. On September 8th, when asked about China-U.S. tensions in an interview with Reuters, Indonesian Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi said, "We don't want to get trapped by this rivalry." On September 9th, China's State Councilor Wang Yi told the ASEAN ministers that the United States was interfering in the South China Sea and was driving its militarization. China says it has historical sovereignty over most of the waterway, but its neighbors and the United States say that claim has no basis in international law, including the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, to which China is a signatory. In a joint statement released late on September 10th, ASEAN member states said progress had been made in negotiations to draft a code of conduct in the South China Sea that was consistent with international law, including UNCLOS. The statement said concerns were expressed by some ministers on the land reclamations, activities, and serious incidents in the area, which have eroded trust and confidence, increased tensions, and may undermine peace, security, and stability in the region. Pompeo's swipe at Chinese firms follows Washington's recent announcement of sanctions on 24 Chinese entities involved in building artificial islands in disputed waters and installing missile systems on them. U.S. ally the Philippines is among countries where blacklisted firms have secured lucrative contracts. Its president says those will go ahead. ASEAN ministers also held remote meetings on September 10th with Japan and Australia. Foreign Minister Marise Payne said Australia was committed to a peaceful Indo-Pacific, free from coercion and with sovereignty, international law, and the rights of all states respected and upheld. Vietnam Foreign Minister Pham Binh Minh, in a statement, welcomed the U.S. role in supporting ASEAN's hope for peace, stability, security, and freedom of navigation.